She equals Onika, 8 equals burgers, is a phrase that exercises the memory of Twitter users with 12-plus hour screen times to its fullest extent. Posted in 2023 under a thread about Northwest's artistic abilities, user @sexbook tweeted a cryptic message, and disregarding the contradictory grammar, @sexbook had crafted a roundabout way to imply that rapper Nicki Minaj, whose real first name is Onika, eats burgers. This is not the only time that deep referential knowledge is required to understand a written opinion. In the current spaces of the internet, mocking rewrites, like the transformation of the phrase "she ate" to "Onika burgers," are commonplace. These rewrites of other users' jokes and formats may be understood as a never-ending series of parodies, every new iteration making a mockery of the last. For example, consider how many memes would be understood by you if quoted verbally by a friend with 1 or 2 words changed to make a new joke. That friend is participating in a contemporary parody culture by reworking your common cultural knowledge. And in her book, A Theory of Parody, Linda Hutcheon aims to defend parody as art. What may be otherwise considered parasitic, says Hutcheon, is part of the labor of crafting something new. Instead of emphasis being placed on a genius enlightenment, parody stresses upon the craft and knowledge of previous works. And this may be especially applied to music. Mashups and borrowings from previous songs in an artist's new song can be called parody, and then understood as a renewal of works that have come before it. And within spaces on the internet, these reworkings become easier than ever. In conjunction with Hutcheon's theory of parody, scholar Tom Ballard investigates parody online in his 2016 journal article titled YouTube Video Parodies and the Video Ideograph. Ballard defines visual ideograph as the visual symbols that develop meaning through common knowledge of a certain set of images. For example, consider the following. Now, depending on your pattern recognition, this may be easily identified as lost.jpg, a meme format circulating around so many social media platforms, it can be understood with black and white lines. The pattern references an unexpectedly melodramatic comic titled Lost, posted to the webcomic Control-Alt-Del. In this way, lost.jpg is a visual ideograph. Other images online, referential to loss, draw upon the knowledge that the figures must be arranged in this way to be understood as reference to the original comic. Rarely do these new images mock loss, but the structure of it. Understanding visual ideographs then makes understanding video ideographs simple. Video ideographs mirror existing video to invoke the themes of the original. And the summoning of previous cinematic motifs and the creation of new works isn't new, especially on the internet. The culture of resharing and reposting has long been a staple of internet communication, which is what Ballard seeks to examine in his work on video ideographs. Furthermore, the renewing culture on the internet brings into the forefront Hutcheon's theory of parody, critically investigating how works that are initially published on the internet are informed and shaped by the culture of renewal. Enter the music video Anaconda, published to YouTube by the official Nicki Minaj channel in 2014. Anaconda was created in an environment in which the repurposing of previous works was well accepted and part of the attitude surrounding creation. This is seen in the first line of the song, which is a sample of Sir Mix-a-Lot's 1992 single, Baby Got Back, and is likely where the title of Minaj's work originated from. And this isn't the only sampling Minaj takes from Nyx in the construction of her song and music video. Therefore, published within the setting of renewal on YouTube established by Ballard, and following the definition of parody established by Hutcheon, it becomes imperative to examine Nicki Minaj's Anaconda music video as parody of Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby Got Back video. We must first establish what Anaconda borrows from Baby Got Back. As mentioned, Anaconda samples Mix's lyrics in the intro, but also at several other points. Sampling as a practice is deeply tied to parody, particularly for the hip-hop music genre, which Marcus Boone articulates in his essay in the book Cutting Across Media. Boone speculates that the infinite is revealed by the mixing, editing, and combining of two or more copies of a record. Sampling enables Anaconda to follow common structural motifs and choices within its genre, laying foundational baselines that can then open the door to further discussions that the artist wants to engage with. This makes Anaconda a player in parody culture and establishes Minaj as a valid speaking subject. Furthermore, the inversion of male desire expressed in Baby Got Back is now applied to female desire, which fulfills a parodic goal of imitating an original work to form commentary about the original. Primarily arguing that men prefer women with large butts, Mix's message in Baby Got Back is created by and aimed at other men. At one point in the song, he invites fellas listening to the song to respond to his claims. However, women in the song are never afforded this same position as subject. Instead, they're always objects. Any generation of body positivity in Baby Got Back is seen through the matrix of male desire. However, in Minaj's video and song, there's a particular emphasis on granting subjecthood to female desire. This inversion of who is expressing desire places Anaconda as a parody of Baby Got Back. For example, the singers occupy different visual lines in their respective videos. Sir Mix-a-Lot is visually separated from the item of desire, which desubjectifies the women in the video. However, in Anaconda, the items of desire being on the same visual plane as the singer creates equality across the roles of speaker and object of desire. Minaj connects her message to Mix's, but by inverting key ideas, such as the visual power dynamics, responds to the sentiments in Baby Got Back. In line with Hutchian's theory, Minaj works from the dynamics of the actors of desire and reworks the structures to craft her message. By placing female sexuality as the main item being discussed in Anaconda, Nicki Minaj inverts the expectation of male gaze upon female bodies and reclaims it for the purposes of self-affirmation. The crafting of this message, however, is not dependent on Sir Mix-a-Lot's song. It uses elements of his craft, such as lyrics, to generate fresh concepts and introduce new ideas to the session of discourse. For example, many of Minaj's original verses imply that having a large butt could be correlated to positive sexual engagements. This is Minaj's addition to her reconstruction of Mix's work. Minaj emphasizes the power of her sexuality by describing the effect it had on her lover, and in primarily describing Michael through his sexual characteristics, reduces him to an object. Neither of these ideas are presented in Baby Got Back, but rather are made in addition. This narrows the definition of Anaconda as parody, specifically to a visual ideograph. Considering Anaconda as a work of parody then requires larger implications to be drawn, especially considering the video's birthplace on the internet. Anaconda entered the hotbed discourse surrounding women's bodies and desire. As a result, Minaj received a lot of backlash for her depictions of female sexuality in her music video. Aria S. Halliday, in their article titled Miley What's Good, examines this online backlash, connecting the critiques to attitudes about women's bodies. Halliday says that users spreading images of Minaj promote the objectification and spectacularity of black women's bodies to get likes, shares, and eventually, money. Considering the contents of Anaconda, it then becomes the source material to be parodied and reworked repeatedly. Visual ideographs, such as stills taken from the original video, were repurposed and utilized to form commentary and responses about the video itself, or perhaps Minaj as an artist. New ideas, built from the discourse Anaconda spurred, arose and flourished, especially those ideas that made definitions about black women and girls. Parodic forms may be a tacit medium of communication on the modern internet. Between cryptic messages like Onika burgers and a series of black lines indicating loss, contemporary parody is extremely far removed from its source materials. However, understanding parody not only as a valid art form, but as a speech act in discursive settings allows for a greater understanding of contemporary communication. Anaconda and Baby Got Back are case studies in the larger culture of reuse on the internet. In further discussions surrounding free use, especially as it relates to computer-generated works that rely on publicly available information, investigations of parody become all too necessary. Thank you.